Shall I start? I think all of you have connected except Sudeep. He is not attending the class today. Okay, all seven have connected, right? Are connected, right? Right. Okay. Shall I start? Is slide visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Full screen ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ? Yes.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
slide visible? Yes. Okay. So in the last class, I started with the inheritance relationship. I discussed about what are the topics you are going to study in this chapter. So mainly, you are going to study the inheritance relationship and all the topics related to inheritance relationship only. So these topics we discussed in the last class. Let me directly start the introduction to inheritance. So in the last class, I have given the introduction to inheritance relationship, right? What is an inheritance relationship and what is the purpose of using the inheritance relationship? So what is an inheritance relationship? So it's a relationship which captures the kind of relationship between the classes, right? So it is one of the important relationships in the object oriented paradigm, and it captures a kind of relationship between the classes. For example, if you consider the car class, then Maruti brand, then Maruti is a kind of a car, or dog is a kind of animal, or mango is a kind of fruit, like that. Okay, so it captures the kind of relationship between the classes. And what is the main purpose of inheritance relationship is it acts as a mechanism for expressing the commonality between the classes. Okay, so the main purpose is it is acting as a mechanism for expressing the commonality between the two classes. Then it is called as the generalization, or it is used to specify that one class is special type of another class. So these are the two main purpose. So first one is it is expressing the commonality between the two classes. Then it is used to specify that one class is a special type of another class. And here we are talking about the generalization and specialization, right? These both generalization and specializations are considered as the synonyms of inheritance. We'll see in detail about the generalization and specialization. When we say that it is a specialization or specialization relationship or generalization relationship. So generalization tends to be more common in version of one of the system, and during the design process, the system architects decides that two or more classes have the common data, behavior, or common interface. So here we are talking during the design process or during the design phase, the developers decides that two or more classes will have the common data or the behavior or the common interface. So if you consider that class 1, class 2, we have two classes, then we say that we need to have the commonality between those two classes. Then how we are deciding the commonality? By defining the common data or the common behavior between the class, or just a common interface between the two classes. Then we say that class 1 and class 2 are same, right? So means here we are defining the common data, behavior, or the interface between the two classes, and that information is collected in a more general class from which the two or more classes can inherit. So for example, if we consider we have defined the common data, behavior, and interface in one class, and from that class two more classes are inherited. Okay, so let us consider that we have considered the class 1 is the general class. Clear? Then class 2 and class 3 we are considering other classes, where these two classes, that is class 2 and class 3, inherits from the class 1. So what they inherit? They can inherit the data, or they can inherit the behavior, or they can simply inherit the common interface. Then we say that the class 1 is a general class, where class 2 and class 3 are the specialized classes because they are inheriting from the class 1. Clear? So, or if we consider in terms of base class and derived class, class 1 becomes the base class, and class 2, class 3 becomes the derived class. Or class 1 becomes the super class, and class 2, class 3 becomes the subclasses. Clear? Understood now? Generalization And if anything we have not discovered, so that is undiscovered generalization relationship will result in duplicate abstractions and implementations. So, for example, if we have not discovered the common data or the code or the public interfaces, then what happens? This leads to the generation of duplicate abstractions and implementations. Okay, and these generalizations are found toward the end of the object oriented design process. So when we reach at the end of the design process, we are considering these generalizations. I mean, many generalizations are found towards the end of the object oriented design process, and these generalizations can be added late in the process with little or no effect on the other members of the design team. So this is about the generalization. So basically what we are considering is it is common in version 1 of the system, and here when we are designing the systems, here the designers will decide that two or more classes will have the common data, behavior, or the common interface, right? And this common information is collected in the form of a general class, and from the general class, the two or more classes can be inherited, right? And if you have not discovered any generalization relationships such as the data or code or the public interfaces, then it results in the duplicate abstractions and implementations. And if these generalizations are not discovered, then they are found toward the end of the object oriented design process, and these generalizations are added late in the process. So okay, this is about the generalization. Next we'll see what is the specialization. So as we say that here, see, it is used to specify that one class is a special type of another class, then we say that it is exhibiting the specialization, right? And the specialization is available or it come into exist during the successive versions of a particular system, whereas generalization occurs at version 1 of the system, whereas the specialization occurs at successive versions of a system as the system adapts to added functionality. For example, if you consider the example of a mobile, so basically initially the mobile was designed to perform the calls or designed to call the basically it is used for calling purpose, let us consider. Okay, by using mobile you can call to your friend, that is the functionality. After that I added the functionality that by using the mobile I can send the message to another person. So that is the added functionality, right? That functionality is added to the existing mobile. Understood, all of you following, right? So here initially I'm considering the mobile simply for calling purpose. After that what I want the mobile to send the message to my friend or my colleague or to my relative, means another functionality is added there, right? Means I'm sending the message in the form of a text, right? So I wanted to send the message, means I wanted to send the text message to my friend. That is the one added functionality, right? And one more is, suppose if I want to send the message, I want to send the message in the form of a image. Okay, initially want to send the message in the form of a text. Later I want to send the message in the form of a image or the audio or the video. Means I'm gone adding the functionality to the existing system. Then what happens, as the system adapts to added functionality, means as we go on adding the functionality, then some classes will inevitably require a special treatment. See, suppose here one class is created for sending the message, right? So consider that class 1 is created for sending the messages only. So initially that class is created only for sending the text message, but as the requirement changed, so I want to change I want to send the audio or the video message or the just the image. Then what happens, that class functionality changes, right? Because we are adding one more functionality or one more feature, right? Then that class should perform that. Then if the class should perform that, then it leads to the special treatment for that class. Following all of you, right? Are you hearing my voice? Yes. Yes. So that class will be treated as a special class, right? Because we want that class to perform different functionalities or different operations. So means as we go on adding the new requirements, then the class requirement changes. Then that class should be treated as a special one. Then inheritance is ideal for implementing these special cases. So means then what I can do is, since the class is created for sending the message, right? Then by using the inheritance property, I'm going to create one more class. With that special class, I can send the what image. Okay, I can send the image, or by creating one more class by using the inheritance property. So what is the inheritance property here? The message has to be transmitted from sender to the receiver. That is the basic functionality, right? Then sending the message from sender to the receiver is a basic functionality. But what type of message I want to send? What type of messages I want to send? I want to send the audio message or the video message. So this is the special requirement, right? Then what I can do is I can create or I can derive one more class by using the inheritance property, so that that derived class will perform the operation of sending the audio message to the receiver. Like that, based on the added requirement, we can create the derived classes by using the inheritance property. Okay, hence inheritance is ideal for implementing these special cases. Then inheritance is useful for adapting standard components for use in application specific areas. And for these reasons, inheritance is called as the reusability mechanism of the object oriented paradigm. Why? Because by using the inheritance property, we can go on creating the additional classes, where those additional classes are performing extra functionalities. So here the basic functionality we are reusing in the derived classes by using the inheritance property. Understood why we are going for inheritance? Clear? Any doubt here? Generalization, specialization, how inheritance leads to the reusability. Any doubt in this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then we'll see the example that we discussed in the previous class. That is class B inherits from class A. See here, we have two classes, class A and class B, where class B inherits from class A. So here, if a class inherits from another class, here the class B is inherits from class A, then class B is said to be a subclass or the derived class. Then if class is inherited by another class, then it is called as the superclass. So in this example, class A is inherited by class B, hence class A is called as the superclass or base class. Understood what is subclass, derived class, superclass and base class? If a class inherits from another class, then that class is called as the subclass. Clear? In this diagram, class B inherits from class A, hence class B is said to be a subclass or the derived class. Suppose if a class is inherited by another class, then that class is called as the superclass or the base class. So in this diagram, class B is inherited by, sorry, class A is inherited by class B, hence class A is said to be a superclass or base class. Okay. So if a class inherits from another class, then the inheriting class should be a special type of inherited class. Suppose if you consider here, if B class inherits from class A, then the class B should have a special type of the class A. Here, class B is called as the inheriting class and class A is called as the inherited class, right? So if a class in, yes,
Ma'am, screen is not visible, means slides are not changing, ma'am.
ಇದು ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ನಿಮಗೆ?
ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ 5 ಅಂತ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತದೆ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ 5.1?
ನೋ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಅ ಮಿನಿಟ್. ಈಗ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಇದ್ರೊಳಗೆ?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Now 5.1 figure, 5.1 is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then okay. Now 5.1 is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we are talking about the subclasses and the derived classes, right? So here, if a class B inherits from class A, then class B is said to be a subclass or derived class. And if class A is inherited by class B, then class A is said to be a superclass or base class. Here, class B is called as the inheriting class and class A is said to be a inherited class. Clear? You know all of you, right? What is a base class, derived class? No need to explain it once again, right? Here, see this diagram. Class B is inheriting from class A. Class B is said as is called as the subclass or the derived class, where class A is called as the superclass or the base class. Understood? Now, if a class inherits from another class, then the inheriting class should be a special type of the inherited class. Now here, see, class B is inheriting class and class A is the inherited class. Now, the class B should have a special type of the inherited class A. Okay, understood? Because it inherits class B inherits from class A, and also it can add its own data or the functionality. Then class B is said to be a special type of class A. Okay. So class B is said to be a special type of class A. What it means? It means that all of B's objects are first and foremost of A's objects. Means whatever the B subjects are there, suppose B consisting of 10 objects, and all these 10 objects first belongs to the class A, first and foremost of A objects. All the B subjects are the class A objects itself. From that, the class B inherits, right? And the inheritance relationship is a class-based relationship. Why? Because all the objects of the class should obey the relationship, right? So all the objects of the class must obey the relationship. Then we say that the inheritance relationship is a class-based relationship. Understood? Any doubt in this? Shall I move on to next slide?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Now this slide is visible. Figure 5.2.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Now notice that all the derived classes get a copy of the base class data. Now see the difference between this. Here the class B inherits from the class A, and this inheritance we are representing in detailed manner. See here, since class B is inheriting from class A, clear? Then when the class B is using the inheritance relationship, so what it indicates, all the B's object gets the copy of the base class data. So here B subjects are getting the copy of the base class data. See here, A data is there in class A. When class B inherits that, then all the class A data is inherited by the class B objects. That is shown here. So that is the inheritance. Here all the data which is present in class A is inherited by class B objects. See here. Okay, that is class B inherits from class A. That is the inheritance of data. And this is not necessarily implied that methods of the derived class can see the data of their base class. Means that subclass will always have a superset of superclasses data. So here, even though all the B subjects gets the copy of the class A data here, but it is not necessarily implied that the derived class can see the data of their base class. So the derived class is the class B can see the data of their base class, means they can see the data of the class A. Means it implies that subclass will always have a superset of its superclasses data. So now the class B is the subclass. Okay, so this will have the superset of its superclass data, means it is having the superset of class A's data. Understood? So even though it gets the copy, but the methods of the derived class can see the data of their base class. As we know that when we are using the inheritance, normally when the classes are inherited by another classes, we are talking about the public, private, and protected, right? You heard about all these words, right? What is a public and private and the protected? We'll see that. So when we're talking about the inheritance, we will have the two access areas. Mainly, we are considering one is the public and the other one is the private. So within the framework of inheritance, it makes sense to consider a third level of access called as the protected access. Normally, when we are talking about simply the inheritance or simply the data accessing and all, we are talking only in terms of private data or the public data like that. But when we are considering the inheritance relationship, here we are also considering one more type of accessing called as the protected accessing. Okay, so hence we have three types of accessing. One is the public, second one is the private, and third one is the protected one. And how the public, private, and protected access is used in the inheritance relationship, let me see that. So even though whether it is a public or private or the protected, all three access areas contains the data as well as the function members. Whether this slide is visible? ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆಯಾ ಈ slide? Classes you have to access. Yes? Is it visible?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
5.2 ನೇ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಫಿಗರ್ 5.2 ಇರೋದು. Which slide is visible now?
I'm actually
5.1.
5.1.
ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿ.
5.1.
ಈಗ 5.2 ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Just a minute, I will change this. Stop presenting. Just a minute, I'll present the screen once again. Now, is it visible? 5.2?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
5.2 is visible, right? So this I explained that. So shall I explain it once again or not required? Okay, I'll explain it once again. So here we are talking about 5.1 I explained, right? What is base class, super class and all. Right, derived class, subclass and all. See here, B class is inheriting from class A. Right. So when it inherits from class A, means what the class will do. So the base objects or the base class will get the copy of the base class data. So here class A is the base class, right? And B is the derived class or the subclass. So the B class objects will get the copy of the class A data. Understood? Now you understood? See here, all the data class A is having, when class B inherits that, all the data of class A is available for class B objects. Okay, so here we are talking about only the data, not the behavior or the methods. See here, when B inherits from class A, all the data of class A is available for class B objects. Understood? But this is not necessarily imply that method of the derived class can see the data of their base class. See here, for example, if you consider the class A is having the methods F1, F2, F3, similarly class B is having the methods F4 and F5. Okay, even though the data of class A is available to class B, but the methods of class B can see the data of their base class, it is not necessary. Okay, so it is not necessarily implying that the methods of the derived class can see the data of their base class. So here the methods are F4, F5. It is not necessarily that they can see the data of A's class. Means it implies that subclass will always have a superset of its superclass data. Understood? Now this slide is visible. Yes. Okay. Classes have two access areas if we consider public and the private. But when we are talking about the inheritance, then we are considering one more access area called as the protected one. Hence, here in when we are discussing about the inheritance relationship, we'll discuss about three types of access areas. One is the public, second one is the private, and third one is the protected. So all these access areas will consisting of the data as well as the different function members. Okay, so the all the areas, all three public, protected, and private area contains the data as well as the function members. Then what is the difference when we declare it as a public or a private and the protect? That we'll see here. If we declare it as a private area, then the private area of class is available only to the implementers of the class. That is those who write methods for the class. Now let us consider that for the class 1, if we declare it as a private area, then the implementers of class 1, those who write the methods for the class only can see that, or that private area is available only for the implementers of that class. Okay, now let us consider that I'm implementing class 1, and in that if the private area is declared, then if I am the implementer, I can use that private area of the class, and this private area of the class is available only for the implementers of that particular class. Understood? But the public area is available for the implementers as well as for the users of the class. See the difference. The private area is available only for the implementers, whereas the public area is available for both the implementers and users of the class. So some designers or some implementers argues that no data should be placed in the public section. So if the data is placed in the public section, what happens? It creates an undesirable relationship between the users of the class and its implementation. So hence, the implementers try to avoid declaring the data in the public section. Okay. So what happens if the data is declared in the public section? So if the data is declared in the public section, that creates an undesirable relationship between the users of the class and its implementation. Hence, they stresses upon avoiding the declaration of the data, or the data declaration in public area. And then what is the protected section? The protected section of the class is something between the public and the private. See here, you know what is the private section and the public section. Private section available only to the implementers of the class, whereas the public area is available for both the implementers and the users of the class. And this protected section is between the public and the private. And it looks like the private access to all the users of the class except the implementers of the derived class. Means here we have the class 1 and class 2, where class 2 is the derived class. Then the implementers of the derived class cannot make use of the data of the base class. Understood? So that is the meaning here. It looks like private access to all the users of the class except the implementers of the derived class. Means if class 1 is the base class and class 2 is the derived class, then the derived class implementers cannot make use of the protected section data. Understood? That is the meaning. But here, if for a class, if we consider that the private area means the implementers of the class can access that. In the public one, both the implementers and users can access that. But in the protected one, it is in between the public and private, right? And it is the private access to all the users except the implementers of the derived class. Then we'll see this with this diagram. So how the data can be inherited, or what is the class access rules. See here in this figure, anything in the protected section of A would be visible to the implementers of A and implementers of B. Because B is the derived class of A, it would be invisible to other users of A as well as to the users of B. See here, What is the protected? Indicates that anything in the protected section of A. See here, the class A is having the three areas: private, protected, and public. We'll see that if we consider public, it is available to the users as well as to the implementers, right? Visible to implementers as well as to the users. Whereas the private is only visible to the implementers. Whereas the protected one is visible to implementers of A and implementers of A's subclass, means it is visible to the implementers of B, not to the users of B. Understood? That is the protected one. See here, except the implementers, means it look like private access to all the users of the class except the implementers of the derived class, but that is not the case right here. See, that is the different meaning. See here, if the class A is declared with the protected, then the implementers of both class A and class B can make use of it, because class B is the derived class of A, and this protected area will be visible to the class A as well as to the class B implementers except the users of class B. Okay, so it is invisible to the users of A as well as to the users of B. That is called as the protected one, but it is visible to the implementers of B. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆಯಾ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು? ನಾನು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಡೌಟ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಕೇಳಿ ಇಲ್ಲೇ. But ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, different meaning. It is not correct, right? It looks like private access to all the users of the class except the implementers of derived classes. That is not the case. But here, this is wrong, right? Because according to this diagram, see here, the protected one is visible to the implementers of A and also to the implementers of B. But here what it says? It says that it access to all the users of the class except the implementers. Not that. It is not visible to the users except the implementers. Okay. It is not visible to all the users of the class, but except the implementers of the derived class. Following all of you, ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆಯಾ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು? ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ? Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, now I am explaining about the accessing rules. So here we are talking about private, protected, and the public. When it is declared as the public, then public is available to the implementers as well as to the users. Okay, and if it is declared as private, then the private area is available only to the implementers. So here, this private for class A, if we declare it as private, then this private area is accessible only by the implementers of class A. But it is not available to the B also, even though it is the derived class of A. But class B cannot see the private area of class A. Now I understood. But if it is declared as protected area, then this protected area is visible to class A implementers as well as for class B implementers. Understood? This protected area is visible to class A implementers as well as for class B implementers. Why? Because class B is the subclass of class A. Understood now? Similarly, for class B, we have three types of accessing areas: private, protected, and public. If it is declared it as private, then class B implementers can see that area or can access that area. And if it is declared it as public, then this is visible to both the implementers and users of class B. Understood? And if it is declared it as protected, then what happens here? This protected area is visible to the implementers of class B and also implementers of any subclasses of B. Means if we derive one more class from class E, just a minute about video. Suppose if we derive class C, if we derive class C from class B, then this protected area will be visible to the class B implementers, class C implementers. Why? Because class C is the derived class of B. Following all of you, see here, the protected area of class B will be visible to the implementers of class B and also the implementers of any subclasses of B. Suppose if we derived the class C from class B, suppose if we derive class C from class B, then this protected area is visible for the class C implementers. Understood now? Because class C is the subclass of class B. Understood? Any doubt in this? Class access rules? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, next we'll move on to the so then before studying in detail about the inheritance, we'll see that the main question is, should an implementer of B allowed to see the A's data? My question is, should an implementer of B allowed to see the A's data? Now A's data is there and class B implementer is there. Okay, now as I said, when it is declared in protected or in the public area, then the class A data will be visible to class B objects, right? Class A data is visible to class B object. Then my question is, should an implementer of B allowed to see the A's data? To answer this question, you need to know the semantics of inheritance and semantics of the containment relationship. So you already studied what is a containment relationship, right? And uses relationship you have studied in the previous chapter, right? The containment relationship is nothing but we are going to create a new class that contains the attributes as the objects of the containing class. Clear? And if we use the same thing, means if the implementer of B is not allowed to see the data of A, then what happens? Then it leads to the inheritance relationship? No. So, right, should an implementer of B allowed to see the A's data? If the answer is yes, then it leads to the inheritance. If the answer is no, then it leads to the containment relationship. Understood? The main question is, should an implementer of B be allowed to see the A's data? If the answer is yes, then it leads to the inheritance relationship. If the answer is no, then it leads to the containment relationship. Understood? Now you need to know what is the containment relationship and the inheritance relationship. Are they same? Containment relationship and inheritance relationship are the same? Now tell me the answer. Whether both containment relationship and inheritance relationship are same? Eradu same containment relationship and inheritance relationship. Both are same? Tell me the answer. Are you there? Are you listening my class? Class ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ?
Yes, ma'am.
Then tell me whether both containment relationship and inheritance relationship are same? Yes, Impana? Are they same?
No, ma'am.
No. Are they same? No. Then what is the difference? We'll see what is the difference between the containment relationship and the inheritance relationship. So if inheritance simply gets a copy of the base class data in the derived class, then the relationship would be useless. Why? Because simply it gets the copy of the data. If it is unable to use it in the derived class, then inheritance relationship becomes the useless relationship. That we don't want. What we want is the derived class must make use of the class A's data. Right. If the class B means if the derived class derived class is not using any data of the class A, then it is said to be a containment relationship. Means the derived class simply will consisting of the class A data. That's all. It is not using. Right. Then we say that it is the containment relationship. If the derived class, that is class B, makes use of the class A data, then it leads to the inheritance relationship. Understood the difference between containment relationship and the inheritance relationship? If we consider class A as the base class and class B is the derived class, if class B, that is the derived class, makes use of the class A's data, then it leads to the inheritance relationship. If the class B simply consisting of the class A data, and if it is not using it, and if the class A is not allowed to use there, then it leads to the containment relationship. Now you understood the difference between containment relationship and inheritance relationship. In the inheritance relationship, we are making use of the class A data, whereas in the containment relationship, simply the class B will consisting of class A data. That's all. Okay, so if no use, it means if inheritance is not used, then it is simply acting as the containment relationship. Okay, then the containment relationship has the exact same semantics. Means if inheritance simply gets the copy of the base class data in the derived class, then the relationship would be useless. That is, the inheritance relationship is useless, and both the containment inheritance relationship will have the same semantics. But since we have the two different relationship, containment relationship and the inheritance relationship, then there should be a difference between the inheritance relationship and the containment relationship. We'll see that. See the no difference between class B inherits from class A and class B contains class A. If both are same, means containment and inheritance relationship is same, then there is no difference between class B inherits from class A or class B contains class A. There is no difference. But since we are using the different words, containment and inheritance, then there should be a difference between the containment relationship and the inheritance relationship. Then what is the difference between them? When a class inherits from another class, then it not only gets a copy of the base class data, it also gets access to the base class functionality. Then we say that it is an inheritance relationship. Now, class A is the base class, class B is the derived class, right? Then when class B inherits from class A, then class B not only gets the copy of class A data, but it also accessing the class A functionality. Now, let us consider that class A is having the functionality F1, F2, F3. Here F1, F2, F3 is there, right? Then when B inherits from class A, B is not only inheriting the data, but it also inherits the functionality of class A. Means the class B objects can access to the class A functionality. Then we say that there is an inheritance relationship between class A and class B. Understood? So when a class inherits from another class, then the inherited class not only gets the copy of the data, but it also gets the functionality of the base class. Then we say that there exists an inheritance relationship. But when a class contains another class, then the containing class does not get the functionality of its contained class as part of its public interface. Then we say that it is a containment relationship. Means that here class A is the base class and class B is the derived class, right? So here class B will consisting of class A, that's all, and it doesn't get any functionality of class A. Means class B doesn't get any functionality of class A. Then we say that it is a containment relationship. Understood the difference between inheritance and containment? If the derived class not only gets the copy of the data of base class, it also gets the functionality, then we say that it is inheritance relationship. And if the derived class doesn't get the functionality of the base class, then we say that it is the containment relationship. Now you understood the difference between containment and the inheritance relationship. We'll see in detail about this. See here, once again, we are considering the inheritance relationship with respect to data and functionality. Objects of class B would be allowed to process the message F1, F2, and F3 since B objects are special type of A's objects. Why? Because B is inherited from class A, and whatever the functionality class A is having, F1, F2, F3, can also accessed by class B objects. So since class B is inheriting from class A, so class A is having the functions F1, F2, and F3. These functions are also visible for B's objects. So hence, the class B would be allowed to process the messages F1, F2, and F3 because the B's objects are special type of A's objects. Suppose, let us consider that if B object is sending the message F1, then the system may ask, do B objects know how to execute F1? So when the B is calling F1 function, then the system will ask whether B knows how to execute F1. If the answer is no, then it leads to error. Then there is no inheritance property, because if B doesn't know how to execute F1, then it leads to an error. Then there is no inheritance exist between class A and class B. Right. If B's object knows how to execute the function F1, then we say that the inheritance relationship exists between class A and class B. That is the case. Here, if an object B was sent the message F1, then the system would ask, do B objects know how to execute F1? If the answer is no, then the error comes. Why? Because there is no inheritance between them. But with the presence of inheritance, then the system may ask the same question. But if the answer is no once again, then does B inherit from someone who doesn't know how to execute F1? So suppose what happens if B is sending the message F1, and if the answer is no, means if B doesn't know how to execute it, then may ask that does B inherit from some other class who does know how to execute that function? Suppose here B is executing function F1, right? Then if B knows how to execute it, then we'll say that there is an inheritance from class A to class B. If B doesn't know how to execute F1, then the system may ask, does B inherit from some other class where that class know how to execute F1? Then once again, if the answer is no, once again it displays an error message. But if the answer is yes, then the system uses the inherited method to execute the message F1. So if B is executing or B's message is sent F1 and B knows that it is executing F1, then the inherited property is used here. Then the function F1 is going to be executed. If not, we'll check some other class that whether B is inherited from some other class or not. If the answer is no, once again the error message will exit. But if the answer is yes, then we'll make use of the inheritance property and the function will be executed. See here, for B object, F2 is executing or a message is sent, then my class does not have an F2 method but inherit from class A, which does. I will execute this F2 as the A's F2 method, because B2 doesn't have it. B2 only having F4 and F5, where F1, F2, F3 belongs to class A. Since class B is inheriting from class A, whenever B is asking to execute B F2 function, then what it will do? It makes use of the inheritance property of class A, then execute function F2 as the class A's F2 method. Understood? In this way, the inheritance will work. So here we are using the inheritance of functionality, right? Because the functionality is also inherited and function B's object is going to be execute that particular function. So hence the inheritance of functionality and data creates an extreme powerful extensibility mechanism, and it allows a designer to create a special type of an existing class which has additional data and function members, and to guarantee that the new type behavior is that is the new type is behaviorally compatible with the old type. Means this implies that I can change each base class object into a new derived class object and guarantee that the system will run exactly as it did before. Means by using the inheritance property, I can go on creating the new derived classes without affecting the base class functionality. So any message being sent to object of the base class will be inherited from the base class by the new derived objects. Suppose in this example, if I derive one more class, class C, right, then the class C can also, if I derive the class C from class A, then class C can also make use of the class A data and functionality, and it can perform the functions without affecting the class A functionality. So hence by using the inheritance property, you can go on creating more number of derived classes without affecting the base class functionality. And hence any message being sent to objects of the base class will be inherited from the base class by the new derived classes, and these messages will access the data of the base class only. Therefore we have the same code running on the same data and providing the behavioral compatibility. See here, so here the class A is having the F1, F2, F3, where the class B is having F4, F5, but class B can execute F1, F2 as the class A's method. And here the behavioral compatibility exists between the class A and class B. Like that, we can create one more derived class, class C, that also can be inherited from class A, where the class C can also execute the functions F1 and F1, F2 and F3. Hence, it is leads to the behavioral compatibility. Understood? So in the next class, we are going to study about overriding the base class methods in a derived class. So any doubt in inheritance? Topics, yes, so many topics you have studied in inheritance that may leads to confusion once again. So you have to study it so that you can clearly understand the inheritance property. Any doubt? Any doubt in inheritance?
No, ma'am.
Have you understood what is the difference between containment relationship and the inheritance relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in the next class, you are going to study about overriding base class methods in the derived class. If you are now doubt, then I will end my class. We'll meet on Monday at 11:30. So your first test is going to be scheduled in the coming week, not in the next week. After that, means in the third week of June, you're going to have the first test. So it may be from 21st to 23rd. So daily you will have 2 subjects. Okay. Morning one subject, afternoon one more subject. So in 3 days you are going to complete the test. Is it okay for you people?
Okay, ma'am.
So daily you have to write 2 tests. Once again, it is in online mode. Morning one test, afternoon one test, and the schedule will be announced shortly. Today or tomorrow, the test schedule will be announced. Okay. If you have no doubt, then I'll end my class. Okay. If you have any doubt, you can WhatsApp me or you can call me afterwards. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Then I'll conclude my class. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.